the market's flooded with books that people use IVF in. And but there were other books that often ended in pregnancy. And it was always kind of like, huh. I mean, I think there's something about reading a hopeful story about overcoming, and I think that that can really resonate with a lot of women. But sometimes, especially if you've been at it for a while and you're thinking like, well, every year I age, every year, this isn't working, the statistics, and it's looking like this is not maybe going to happen for you the way you thought. But it's nice to see that somebody, that wasn't their ending either. And it was a happy ending just the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's beautiful to be able to see that happy endings don't look only one way. Leigh, welcome to Brave New Us.
Thank you, Samantha. I'm so glad to be here.
So glad to have you. As we start, could you share a little bit about your own story and what led you to write this book?
Sure. It was, getting close to being 50. I kind of finally felt like I was able to talk about it in a different way that could be helpful. I didn't feel, I just felt I was finally out on the other side. And I was in a place professionally where I had the time to write. I wrote some articles for the National Catholic Register that really resonated with some people. I got a lot of like DMs and other responses, and from spouses like looking to help their wives, and from women and from priests saying like, I need a resource, for couples who come to me. I don't often know what to say. And I had a mentor who just really encouraged me and said, Leigh, I think this is your book. And I just, I had a friend that called it a love story, and I think that's what it is. I mean, it's a story of our marriage, and infertility features in that.
Yeah. It's great when you have a mentor who listens that closely to the Holy Spirit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if a woman is pressing play on this episode because it's slowly dawning on her that this struggle with infertility is her struggle, what are the things that you would want to tell her?
That she's not alone. That there are at least one other person has gone through it. That's me. That your suffering isn't for nothing, and you're going to be okay. Probably better than okay.
Yeah.
Because it feels like it might kill you, but it doesn't. And that's, I mean, I think it sounds so obvious, but it's really something sometimes you need to hear.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because I think it's a kind of pain that's so personal that even if other people have gone through it, it's so close to the heart. It's very wounding.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so private. And often there's shame associated with it. We're embarrassed. You just feel like the odd, man out or woman out. Everyone else seems to, operate normally, and there's you. And it's hard not to think that it was something you did or something you're not doing or something, just all those things. And you just want that part to be over so quickly.
Yeah.
And you overcome whatever difficulty you're having, and then you never have to think about it again. You don't want that to be the end of your story. And I think a lot of books that I came across over the years, well, I mean, of course, the market's flooded with books that people use IVF in. And but there were other books that often ended in pregnancy. And it was always kind of like, huh. I mean, I think there's something about reading a hopeful story about overcoming, and I think that that can really resonate with a lot of women. But sometimes, especially if you've been at it for a while and you're thinking like, well, every year I age, every year, this isn't working, the statistics, and it's looking like this is not maybe going to happen for you the way you thought. But it's nice to see that somebody, that wasn't their ending either. And it was a happy ending just the same.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful to be able to see that happy endings don't look only one way.
Right.
A lot of times we want to take everything under our control and ensure the outcome that we desire.
Yeah, you want to tell God how it's going to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Even when you know better, it's just part of our natural human condition.
Exactly. And you feel a lot of terrible things when you go through it. I mean, any kind of suffering, you're going to get just go into some dark places and indulge yourself in some, jealousy, some envy, just, little things, not little things, big things.
Mhm.
And it's good to know that don't heap extra shame on yourself, for feeling those things. It's only natural. But obviously get to spiritual, guidance and go to confession a lot. That helps. But that helps anyway. But especially
All of us.
right. Yeah. Um,
Are there any specific steps that you would advise someone or couple to take, or is there anything that you maybe would caution them about as they're navigating this unfamiliar terrain of fertility medicine? It can be like a fraught
yeah.
landscape,
Oh,
physically
yeah,
speaking.
that's a very, very good way to put it. Fraught landscape. I would, if at all possible, see a holistic women's what's it called, restorative reproductive medicine doctor if you
Mhm.
can. I understand it's not possible all the time to be able to do that. If you can find a doctor that at least shares your faith and or respects your faith is another
Mhm.
way to do it. Someone who's going to say like, okay, you want to do it by the Catholic playbook, I'm here for you, let's do it.
Yeah.
um,
Which is really what any doctor should do, right? They should be
yes,
sensitive enough to the needs of their patient. Like their patient is
yes, but
not just
I
a
find,
body, they're a
yeah,
holistic person. Yeah.
I think
It's
that,
a lot easier if they're
right. And I
someone who's already.
sure, I think that the reproductive medicine and endocrinology is such a lucrative profession for a lot of people that they don't. I don't know. I've heard the similar story to mine where we thought we could go in and do what we wanted to do with a well regarded um, mainstream reproductive endocrinologist, and he mocked us all the time. Like it was really awful, and I think that that's almost worse than the other things you encounter, like, you realize, like, if I'm seeking his care and he's doing IVF, is there some sort of cooperation in that? Um, seeing putting yourself there with the pictures of babies on every single wall of the, waiting room, it's even if you have all the resolve in the world, it's still gonna be tempting,
Yeah.
You're gonna think maybe just one embryo, I won't do this, I won't do that, I won't screen for this.
Mhm.
And it's you're already going through so much. I think that if you could just steer clear of of that temptation, is one of the biggest steps. Even if you have to travel,
Yeah.
definitely worth it to be treated as a whole person. And
Mhm.
I mean, because seeing someone who respects you that way and wants to care for your whole person and realizes that a healthy woman should be able to get pregnant,
Mhm.
is just even if obvious not everything is going to work for everybody, but that itself is a gift.
Right.
And so I think just we should all strive for that level of healthcare.
Yeah, for sure. I
Mhm.
mean, it sounds like mocking you for your beliefs. That's not just being a bad doctor, that's being a bad human, you know?
Yes,
We
I would
don't wanna treat
agree
each other
there.
that way.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've had that experience too, though, with doctors.
yeah. It can be
They
really
wanna.
frustrating getting good healthcare.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so that's a really important time in your life where you wanna really make sure, you're gonna be comfortable with these people because, they're gonna be there with you,
I
through
think
it.
that that's hopeful, though, imagining seeing somebody who doesn't just have technical expertise. You want somebody
Mhm.
with the best technical expertise,
Right.
but also have somebody who has bedside manner,
Yeah.
who is going to understand what you're going through or empathize with you in the middle of your struggle. That's
Mhm.
very important. And there are a lot of providers out there. So if you're not finding that from your doctor, you can
Yeah.
find somebody who
And
is
I
going
think
to.
it's easy to forget that you're not locked in, it's
Right.
yeah, you have a lot of agency in the process, but again, you feel desperate and alone and yeah,
Yeah.
change your doctor.
So obviously, infertility is something that a couple experiences together, but I do think that women feel this pain in a particular way.
Mhm.
What would you say to the woman who's feeling resentful of her body or frustrated, anguished that she's broken in some way? And I mean, it doesn't just have to be infertility. Obviously, that's the subject, but I
Mhm.
think a lot of people these days experience chronic illness and suffering with just this. Why isn't my body working the way that
Right,
it's supposed to work? Everybody
right.
else's body, we perceive everybody else's body works fine.
Yeah.
Why is this? happening and being frustrated with their bodies.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, a lot of it, again, is a lot, I wouldn't say really easy, but a lot easier to say at this point in my life.
Mhm.
And you really kind of have to really do the work, which seems impossible because you're already so exhausted. But I
Yeah.
think remember that, like, we're mothers by nature, all women, and that it's reductive to just talk about babies in terms of motherhood and children. Um, and that our call to be fruitful is not just the obvious fruit of children. It's,
Mhm.
all kinds of other ways we can, be a mother to each other and to others on while we're on this planet. I mean, because you think even a celibate priest is called to be fruitful, and
Mhm.
just start thinking about bigger ways in which you might be called to be fruitful. And it's really, I say it, it's really hard, and I think that's what my main feeling in my book is like. Yes, it's really hard, almost without a solution. Like, I just want to tell you, yes, you are right. This is awful. Um, but, also obviously to offer some hope. But I think that just
Right.
feeling alone with your feelings and like spinning, and maybe you don't have a friend who's going through the same thing. Sometimes those friends take a while to make, especially if you're
Mhm.
younger. Because statistically most people are successful. And it's I think just that alone, being just being seen, I think, is really important. Um, because people can commiserate, but it really is a very specific ache if you feel that call to motherhood and it's not happening. I think, there's other ways to do that. And I don't think you have to question that call to motherhood
Mhm.
just because it's not happening for you biologically. I think if you hear it and you've, done all the discernment, then, you gotta follow that call. Um, but again, I think there's a real distinction that needs to be made between people who have a vocation, say, for adoptive parenthood,
Mhm.
um, and those who are called to be mothers, because I feel like there's infertility, which is like a medical diagnosis, and I think people so often just wanna help. They wanna fix the problem for you.
Mhm.
And so, why don't you just adopt is a big question.
Yeah.
And I just think it's really helpful to think of it, that's a medical diagnosis, this is a calling. It's a different calling than even just, parenthood. My husband and I, it wasn't hard for us, we just sort of knew, that this was, I mean, I actually was talking to someone else about this recently. It's funny, because you've written books too, like, you revisit these stories again, like, and the book kind of keeps going in your brain, and and the things you could rewrite. But thinking about actually coming to, like, the end of, like, the first year of trying to conceive naturally, that, like, and knowing that, like, each month goes by, or, chances that something is wrong is going up, and actually kind of being excited about pursuing adoption, like, even,
Mm.
like, and then
Mhm.
so, I mean, I just think that we had so many signs over and over um, that that was what we were meant to do. But for others, it's not, and I think that we need to work hard as a church and just as humans, to know, like, to not feel like you need to fix people to put them in a box. Because I think sometimes people want others to adopt because then they're like, "Okay, then I know what to do with you." Then
Yeah.
your kid will go to the school, and we'll do this, and we'll have play dates and this, and I know what to do. And um, I think that just talking about infertility more, driving it, like, out, people should be able to talk about it the way, I think the way people talk about a difficult childbirth, or, all these kind of women things. Women are afraid, they don't bring it up. People don't want to bring it up to someone they think is suffering because you don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Other people are embarrassed, or they don't want to just complain, little things like that. And I just think that the more we talk about it, the less alone everyone will feel, and the more people will understand that, like, adoption isn't a fix for,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I want to circle back to adoption in a little bit. But for what you're saying, that infertility, I mean, it really is common these days. It's like 1 in 5 people are
Yeah,
women.
I've seen different ones. I mean, I know for a while, I know it was 1 in 10 for a while,
Okay.
but I've seen, like, 1 in 7. Um,
Mhm.
and again, I think infertility, like so many things, is like a big, when people talk about those statistics, like a big
Mhm.
umbrella, right? Like it could be
Yeah.
age
Mhm.
or, things that we sort of already know about. But obviously there's, lots of causes of infertility. But yeah, it is common. And I think that it's just something that we should be ready for, that it's not so uncommon that we shouldn't have, it shouldn't be like a specialist thing. We should all know
Mhm.
the common vernacular surrounding it.
Sure. So speaking to that
Mm.
that issue of age, I
Mhm.
think the conventional wisdom or message to young people these days, certainly when I was growing up, is especially young women, the prudent thing to do is to wait. Like,
Yep.
wait to get married, wait to have a family, wait until you're established in your career, and then you can go do this family building type work.
Mhm.
But I have more recently been hearing the pendulum kind of shifting on that,
Yeah.
where people are saying, oh, you should get married younger. Don't put this on hold for economic reasons or career ambitions. What do you think about that
Yeah.
question? Like, where do you land personally in that
Well,
conversation?
my husband and I are big advocates of getting married young and
Mm.
starting your family right away. We're big advocates of, and again, this was all, you know, hindsight, right? What we
Yeah.
learned from our own. So we were a couple years apart in college, and so we dated for 4 years. We also don't recommend that. I mean, that just gets to be unpleasant at a certain point. Like, it's just, what are we doing? And you just want to be married already. So, I think keep it things. I mean, it's hard though. Then I think, oh, but I wouldn't have wanted to not, lock him down because I want to marry that guy. Um, but it's, I think we should, normalize that getting married young thing again, because it's so much better. I mean, we really love being married, and we did definitely fall prey to the idea that, we should be, done with graduate school. We should be do this. We should be able, we shouldn't be on the move. We should be in our stable home and all that stuff. And we did put it off for, I mean, a couple years. Um, but I think now, just looking back at that time, I kind of feel like, well, I mean, I just got done saying how anxious I was to be married, but at the same time, I feel like if you're not really ready to have a baby, maybe that's a sign you're not ready to be married yet. But I'm definitely in favor of the doing it, because I see people all the time. You can do both, and maybe you're not going to be the have the fresh muffins every single morning, like that mom, and maybe you're going to take 15 years to write your dissertation, but like you can, I really think this is a really optimal time for women. It's one of the great things, maybe the only good thing about the pandemic was that everyone learned to work remotely, and
Right.
that makes momming and working like so much easier. I mean, still hard,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no
We're
matter
just
what,
hours away, right?
there's going to be challenges. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's interesting too, that question about if you're ready to have a baby. Because, like, are you ever really
Yeah,
ready for parenthood and
right.
all of that? But I definitely see in friends, family members, people who did delay childbearing or continuing to wait until the circumstances are perfect. In the meantime, you know, the chances, I mean, even if they everything were to go smoothly,
Yep.
they're they're just much less likely to have lives that overlap with their grandchildren.
Yeah.
uh,
No, I think about that all the time, and I think too, like, I didn't have any idea how I knew I always wanted to be a mom, but I had no idea how much I would really love doing it,
mm,
and we are, I just turned 50, and we have 4 sons, and I'm like, I just wish we had more, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And when people, like, they talk about, you see, like some, a friend that's a connection of a connection, someone maybe you don't keep up with, they're like, "We're a one and done," and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, they're so great, like, have lots of them," you know? I mean,
Yeah, we have
it's
4 too.
awesome.
I would love to have more.
Yeah, they're just so great. I mean, it's a pain, but I mean, what isn't that's worth it, you know?
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, I love that, hearing you say that, because think that I think that that's not often what people say. Even if they do love being moms, it's just not the more popular thing to say. This is wonderful. This is
yeah,
fantastic. This is great. I love this so much. And I think more people need to hear that, so that they could be encouraged. And maybe maybe you can speak to this a little bit more, but maybe that having that time of struggle where it was difficult made you more grateful and treasure it even all the more.
It's definitely possible. I mean, I think about that too. I think I would have, if I'd conceived even just like one time and had a like a successful pregnancy, I think I would have kept chasing that
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't have pursued adoption. I would have just, I think my mindset would have been changed when this was so clearly what my husband and I were put here to do.
Mm-hmm.
With these 4 boys, I mean, we're not, adopting the world. These 4 children were meant to be our 4 children. And I think like, thank goodness, like this all happened. We all found each other.
Yeah, I
Um,
love that you put that in your at the very beginning. The dedication of the book
mhm.
is to your husband, your 4 boys, and it says, "I wouldn't change a thing."
Yeah,
I
I just would never ever want them to think they were plan B,
mm-hmm.
you know? Um, I mean, obviously, it often does happen after, but we actually we'd only been trying to conceive for a year or 2 when we started pursuing adoption and then continuing to try to conceive.
Mm-hmm.
We finally did see a NaPro doctor eventually, and that was a lot better. But, yeah, so I think that if you, yeah, I just they're my life. They're my boys. Yeah. I had them all 4 home today for, like, 15 minutes, so I enjoyed that.
How old are they now?
Um, 20, 14-year-old twins, and 3.
Wow.
It's a lot of
A
different
good
needs.
span in there.
Yeah.
That's great. So, the title,
Mhm.
Infertile But Fruitful, love it. I think it's
Thanks.
beautiful. I also can imagine somebody who's in the midst of it seeing it and feeling a little bit disillusioned, like anything but children, biological children, pregnancy
Yeah.
is just a consolation prize.
Yeah.
But that's clearly not how you feel having gone through this whole experience. Can you
Mhm.
share how you moved from grieving that loss to seeing the gifts and the beauty of this different kind of fruitfulness than what you were imagining?
This probably isn't maybe the good news people are looking for here, but I really did a lot of grieving writing the book.
Mm.
Really re-going because, I've been busy with these kids and, didn't have time to
The four
dwell
boys,
on
the four
things.
boys.
Yeah, although, I mean, honestly, I mean, I think I've stopped, but I mean, like, for as long as I can remember, any little abdominal twinge, like, I would be like, "Oh, oh." I mean, you know what I mean? This is, like, well into my 40s, I never kind of stopped that,
Yeah.
and I think too, like, approaching perimenopause and, like, realizing that no matter what the past held, like, this story is over.
Mhm.
Um, that was a different way of grieving because it was sort of like, well, I could imagine if you realized, like, if you had a big biological brood and like, "Oh, this was our last baby," or, "This ended up being our last baby,"
Mhm.
because biology and age, and thinking like, "Oh, that would be a different kind of grief," but it's like grieving something that you didn't have, and that was it's I mean, I feel like because now I'm, like, talking about the book all the time, I'm still kind of doing it, but it's a weird yeah, again, it's a weird sort of grief to realize that it's just never like, it really, really this time, it's never gonna happen. Um,
Mhm.
and you worry, you have like, "Did I try hard enough? Was I" did I? Because you see these women I mean, I think that NaProTechnology has really advanced since, I was cared for by it, with it, anyway, um, and I've heard of these different things that I never heard of back in the day, and I know several women who really stuck with it, 4, 5, 6 years, and they got pregnant, like, but it takes a lot of time, and
Mhm.
my husband and I think, were just too antsy to do that, and so we ended up after we were doing NaPro for a while, we ended up just saying we took a break, and then we were like, "Yeah, I don't know, should we go back?" And my husband was just like, "This is so great. Like, no needles, no this, no blood tests, no" like, "This
Mhm.
break's been great. Let's do this all the time. We already have this one son, he's awesome. Let's just do it again."
Yeah.
It was so easy, and it was, like, such a relief, kind of like permission from him. Not that I needed permission, so to speak, but like I just didn't want to disappoint him by saying like I'm tired, I don't want to do this anymore. And I think he probably
Mhm.
felt the same way. You also want to like be cooperating with God's plan for you. Like you want to be doing all the stuff you're supposed to be doing. And it's a lot. It's a lot of unpacking. But yeah, going through it again was pretty good. I mean, I feel actually pretty like I don't think I realized that I was carrying some of that grief still,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
and now that I think that I'm getting like anonymous messages saying like, thank you, you know, like this. I had one woman who it was like really, it almost felt like, is this a prank? Because her story was so similar to mine. Um, and it was just so moving. But it really was strange. I showed it to my husband, like, isn't this funny? And he's like, what? And he kept like checking to see, like, is this an email you wrote to someone? Like, what is, but anyway, but that one in particular was just like, I feel like that, if I only got that response to the book, it would have
Mhm.
been worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how beautiful to know that that's resonating with not just that's the one fruit that the Holy Spirit allowed you to see as like a thank you for
Hmm.
putting your heart into this.
Totally.
Something you said earlier, because I think it was interesting because it in the church especially we don't talk about women
Hmm.
as being or men as being infertile. We talk about couples being
Yeah.
infertile, but I
Right.
really think when infertility is discussed, it's usually just in terms of the what women are going through and what women are
Mhm.
feeling. But you were talking a little bit about how it was affecting your marriage. Would you be comfortable sharing how that process was, what it was like to experience that as a couple?
This was, pretty interesting because we, had both my husband was the general counsel for the President's Council on Bioethics at the time. We were really invested, and he was drafting, a government report called Reproduction and Responsibility. So, essentially, sort of every, you know, week of that first year, he was learning about something new that I mean, that could be going wrong.
Mm,
And then I was in graduate school at Catholic University and was studying philosophy with a concentration in medical ethics. And so we were both like, you know, dealing with this in study and then in our home. And again, this is one of the reasons why we were so cocky and thought we could go in to the, you know, conventional doctor and, you know, we knew what was up. Um, so I think that that did feel a little bit like we can compartmentalize part of it. We were almost like our own project. And because it wasn't because of his work, I think, and I mean, I don't mean to be so generalizing about men and women and things, but I think that especially because it is a woman who does most of the testing, it's pretty simple for the guys, a little bit more complicated if you're Catholic. Um, but it's it's so much about, you know, X-rays and ultrasounds and blood work and things like that for us that I think it can be easy for a husband to maybe check out a little bit.
mhm.
Whereas my husband was like he was like a fertility expert, you know? So I think that again, like, kinda I mean,
It
and
does
we
make a difference.
yeah, it made a big difference, and I mean, also, I think that we're just those 4 years of dating, we were, like, really good friends, you know, because
Mhm,
we were kind of children together, and, um, I think that really helped too, and that we were friends, really, really good friends, um, to support one another. I mean, it's really hard, and I think too, like, I know that, you know, as a church, we talk about the couple being infertile, but it's really you still like, you know, you wanna be like, "It's me." Like,
mhm,
will you just he's like, "No, it's not. It could be me. I don't know. We don't ever know. We don't know everything." And I'm like, "No, it's me." It's almost like you want to take the blame or something. I mean, that's, like, one of, like, the real complicated things that I revisited, like, those kind of feelings.
mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, but it's I mean, it really does. It tests marriage for sure. Um, I mean, I see like for mainstream couples, it's a fairly high rate of divorce among couples who experience infertility. You know, it's the most intimate thing, and you have to go parade it in front of doctors, and
Yeah.
you know, and then there's also, I mean, the visible sign that you don't have a baby. So sort of like everyone knows your business, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's really tough.
Do you feel like any of that um, brought you closer together?
Absolutely. It definitely well, and one thing it really did was it made us more I mean, we were we were Catholic, but it was more like it was our religion, and then it made it happen too with a move from uh, a city to a small town with a good Catholic community. But like we became more culturally Catholic
Hmm.
during that time, which I think was partly that was maturing. Um, and you sort of just growing and realizing, I mean, because I mean, obviously we faced some of the difficult teachings of our church like head on through infertility.
Yeah.
And so I think that really helped. And then of course, becoming, you value marriage even more and you value family even more. And I think too, I think experiencing suffering together,
Hmm.
I mean, really is something that kind of cements you. I think it can, do a couple of things, but that especially the way that we chose sometimes force ourselves, just to bring it to the foot of the cross.
Hmm.
Um, and like that was actually very good for our marriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think you're right. Suffering it either drives us away from God and away from one another, or to God and towards each other. So,
Mhm.
what would you say to a couple who is kind of in the middle of that? What are some things they could do in their marriage, in their relationship with God together, to
I
turn
mean,
towards each other, towards God?
the best would be to find a couple who's been through it too, I think, and live to tell the tale. Obviously, we can't decide who we have access to, but that would be really great. Spiritual direction. You could read my book together. um,
Definitely read the book.
yes, frequent confession, and I think also getting attached to a particular saint helps.
Hmm.
I liken it to I had sort of faked when my husband and I first met that I really was into college football. And I mean, I was like I liked, the snacks and, crisp fall weather and things. But what helped me is I actually learned this from another wife, a young wife, that she was like, you pick one player and then you follow them all season. And you become like kind of invested in that one player. And I was like, yeah, it really did help me get into the game. And
That's
I
a
did.
very good advice for the feminine heart, I
It
think.
is, the
Attentiveness
old
to the
days when I
personal.
used to have a stack of magazines on your thing and you follow your guy and yeah, anyway. Um, so I think that too, I think like really getting to know a saint. I mean, I think there are definitely like Padre Pio, Saint Gianna, there's, some people that are typical go-tos in this time, but I think that if you just get one and really like dive into their life, I think that that is a really good way like to get through that
Mhm.
suffering part and I mean, because they really had some adventures, to say the least, the saints, right? I mean, that's why we study their lives, and I think that that too, and then I think you can, have a personal devotion, and you can have almost a real, you can have a relationship with that saint, and it's just one more person that's, like, really on your team.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's great advice. That's great advice for anybody through any season.
Yeah, I know, I was just thinking, like, spiritual reading for Lent.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
kidding, right? Yeah. I want to, like I said, I want to circle back to adoption, but before we move into questions about adoption, I would love it if you could maybe speak to this idea of fruitfulness beyond adoption, because I do think that is really important. What you said about there's the medical experience, and then there are condition, and then there is a call, and those are two
Mhm.
separate things.
Yeah,
So what is this idea of fruitfulness that is not necessarily it could be in addition to adoption,
right.
but can we talk about that as a separate idea?
Yeah, and I think it can be hard to wrap your brain around it because you have a woman like a couple, they're infertile, they don't have a call to adopt, but they're still really upset that they are infertile. Do you know what I mean? I think people must think, "Oh, they must be okay with it. That's why they didn't adopt,"
Yeah.
or something, and I think there's some real complexities there, but I just think anything that you're going to give to this world is, you can be a godparent, you can mother your girlfriends, the spiritual motherhood is a real thing, and I think that it's not just sort of playing at being a mom in the
Hmm.
way the conventional sense. And I have one friend, Anne, who's actually her story is featured in my book. She started this infertility ministry called Springs in the Desert.
Oh yeah.
That's
Hmm.
amazing. it's amazing. And so you think like her suffering, like bore such incredible fruit that she has. They go into parishes, they have all of these materials, they have retreats, they have all this stuff for, again, these women who feel alone. And
Mhm.
it offers advice on pastoral care. And so priests, again, who didn't know what to say, they can have these resources. And she grew that out of her own, sorrow. And it's just beautiful.
Mhm.
So I think, that's my favorite example.
Yeah. Yeah, I have
But
a friend like that too. She had 7 miscarriages and so much grief with all of that. And she has some sons now, but I mean, she had to really go through all of that. And then it bore great fruit because she single-handedly started the miscarriage ministry in our diocese, and they do stuff. I mean, they're not limited to our diocese anymore. They're sending care packages, across the United States, and
unbelievable.
that is a really beautiful kind of fruitfulness that came from deep,
Mhm,
deep suffering.
mhm.
And she talked about how much it transformed her heart and her relationship with God to be with Him in that suffering.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think too, I think we don't always count prayers, as fruit. Like that and they, if we believe what we believe, then we believe that prayer matters and that they work, and they're heard. I think, that's a great way to be fruitful. I think about like the lay celibate, especially. I mean, I think that's such a beautiful vocation. And they're also called to be fruitful. I think that the care that childless adult children can give to their parents is, again, one of those sort of like overlooked things
Mm-hmm.
that, I think that that's a very special time and a very sensitive time in your life when your parent then becomes, you become the caregiver to your parent. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very, very strange, tables turning. And I think that the emotional bandwidth, I think, that perhaps a couple who's childless would have to deal with that, um, can be really well suited for that part of your life.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's just childless people who have that call to fruitfulness in other ways, because I think about what it was like to be like have baby after baby and be in that difficult season, and all the things that I wanted to do but I didn't have a capacity to give because my immediate call was needed
Yeah.
right in front of me.
Yeah.
And then now my kids are even just a little bit older. They're still very young, but even just a little bit older, the capacity that I have to care for people outside of our home has
Mhm.
increased dramatically, to be there for other mothers who are in that season of drowning in babies.
Right.
That it looks different. And then I can see the way that mothers who are headed towards their empty nest or who are already there are giving of themselves to others, and mothering people in those different states. And so it's kind of like a continuum that we're
Mhm.
all a part of, because we all are called to be mothers in a certain
Yeah.
way as women. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking the same way because it's not like you can just sort of like hang up your apron, like, "Okay, I have my kids. There's fruit. Check." Go on with like a selfish life or something. Yeah. Fruitfulness shouldn't go
Mhm.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's a really good point. Yeah, it is. It is. I like that idea that it's cyclical too. That sort of balancing and like weight shifting of like dependence and care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it is, I mean, sometimes you're called back into, for
Mhm.
whatever reason, you're called back to serious focus in the home.
Mhm.
If you have a child who becomes ill or spouse or something, and then you can be called, to
Yeah,
move beyond that when you do have that extra capacity.
exactly.
So we talked a little bit about this already, about this question of that saying, why don't you just adopt, is not very helpful. Is there anything more to be said on that?
I think it's important to remember that, you know, if they are experiencing infertility, they've heard about adoption. I mean, most people have anyway, but you know what I mean? Like, they don't need you to remind them that that's an option.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think whenever you're trying to, like, help somebody or, express, care, and it's everyone's gonna be awkward probably, but I think less is always more in those situations. think listening, because even then, the same way I think often people will keep their infertility or their struggles with fertility a secret is because you sort of want to avoid those like expectant faces every 28 days, or is she drinking or this, whatever. And the same sort of thing too is true. I mean, sometimes you have to wait a long time for an adoption
Mhm.
and could just be like, you know, yeah, I know you're excited for me, but like, did you get a baby yet? Did you get a baby yet? I think can, be hard, especially when someone's been waiting a long time too. I
Yeah.
mean, I think everybody, there's no ill will in any of this, but
Right.
I think just, letting the couple with infertility for the most part take the wheel in
Mhm.
those conversations is always a good idea because again, you don't know exactly what's going on.
Yeah. I think for people who are maybe in this spot of the situation where they're considering adoption, I
Mhm.
think there is a lot to consider, and there's a lot out there to maybe make them feel anxious or scare them about all the things that could go wrong or
Yeah.
be a problem. And I don't want to, those are real things. I don't want to minimize them. At the same time, I do believe, and I would hope that you could speak to this, that there are unique joys and gifts that other families, non-adoptive families, or families who don't know or are not familiar with those, that they might
Mhm.
miss if they're not having that personal connection. Can you share maybe what those might be?
Yeah. Let me see. What was the first part of the question again? Sorry.
There's a lot out there that's scary
Oh, scary, right.
about adoption, and that's not to say that those things are not real and not
Right.
important in your discernment. But
Yeah.
I think the I don't know, the discussion, or when there's fear involved, we can like slide into that.
Yes.
And so it's helpful to have a counterbalance to, yes, those things are
Mhm.
real. They're not to
Yeah.
be minimized. You do need to think about and pray about it. But also, here's
Yes.
the good news about
Okay.
adoption.
Yeah, so I think that the scary stuff is right. In fact, someone was asking me recently the, about grief, of course, about not being pregnant, and I think or, like, the suffering that goes on, like, when you're currently in the season of infertility or however long, and you want to be pregnant. I think that, for me, what I really wanted eventually, especially, was the ease of just, being married and then marital act and then baby. Um, 'Cause adoption involves a lot of people, a lot of people. It's more than just we call it the adoption triad is usually the birth mother, the child, and the adoptive parents or the birth parents, and then so there's a lot more people than that. There are extended families. There's your extended family. There's just a lot. There's social workers and lawyers and hospital people and nurses and it's so complicated. And
Mhm.
I think one of the things though that again I think it's a strange doubling up here, but it kind of confirmed my vocation to uh, motherhood through adoption was the maternal feelings I felt toward um, birth mothers. Um, that I was surprised by that because I think that's especially what people fear the most. I
Mhm.
think that unknown, this stranger, and then you're a stranger to them, and there's baby, and it's also big, and it's very, when you haven't done it, it's it's really mysterious, and I think there's again like a lot of scary stories out there. But being part of that and having someone like I'm gonna choke myself up, like, reach up and grab your arm and say, like, "I'm so glad I picked you." Like, that's amazing. Like, I'm still, like, floored by it because it's just so big, and I can't think of another experience, like, in human living that could beat that for me, like, this whole being entrusted and have it become my child, like, it's just it's really it's worth it, it's worth it, it's worth failed adoptions, it's worth the hassle, it's worth all of it. I mean, it's just a really, really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Very human, very fleshy, which is I mean, we're into that. So, it's just yeah. So, I mean, I think if you're thinking about it, but you're afraid, you know, you should message me because my husband and I, we love to help people share our story with them. Um, it's all of your fears are warranted in a certain sense, but you shouldn't let that stop you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So there's one question that we close with that we ask all of our guests, and that is, if you could point to one person, alive or dead, real or fictional, who embodies the very best of being human, who would that be and why?
Oof, that's a good question. Oh, I would choose. I mean, I'm gonna go with my husband. If only because he loves me and he loves our Lord and he still loves me, um, through all this, and he's my favorite.
Love it. That's beautiful. Where can listeners find you, connect with your work, the book, certainly, and then beyond the book, your work that you are
Sure.
doing?
The book you can get at, Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, blah, blah, but also sophiainstitutepress.com is where you probably should order it from. Um, I have a website, leighfitzpatricksnead.com, where you can find, maybe this podcast and, other links to things I've written. And then also, you can go to the website of my organization, the Catholic Association, and find work that I've done there too. You can also listen to us on our nationally syndicated radio show, Conversations with Consequences, on EWTN Radio, also available as a podcast. We also have a Substack, um, Catholic Conversations with TCA. So those are all my spots.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time and being here today and sharing your heart and your work with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.